Ah, well, I tried that too and almost got my hand stuck. And yeah, that came out good. Thank God I didn't do it again. Yeah, well, it's funny too. You learn things from big mistakes, even little mistakes, you learn things. Anyway, speaking of learning things by mistakes, oh, don't show this again. This meeting is being recorded. Okay. All right. So I'm tagging off of Deb's PowerPoint from last week on what are you eating in the new year? What things about your diet? What are you what are you pursuing as far as that goes? So I take it a little further on the same plan, basically, uh, putting aside resolutions. Let's change that. And instead of resolutions and promises, let's talk about what are your goals and what you're working on and how do you expect to get there? And just so you know, in the next week or so, we are entering the Chinese New Year, year of the snake. That's why I have that. I got the snakes up there on the PowerPoint slide. So according to the zodiac, it's associated with wisdom, charm, elegance, and transformation. Okay. So how are we going to transform ourselves in 2025? That's a good question. All right. Uh-oh. I think, oh, just wonder if I press oh, there we go. All right. So in what way are you going to increase your activity level? How are you going to do that? For me, I can tell you at least to start is I'm going to be consistent with walking exercises, whether that be on a straight flat plane, flat surface, or upstairs, and resistance exercises. I'm going to try to increase that where I can on my schedule. So I'm wondering about you out there, what kinds of goals do you have as far as activity and how that's going to enhance or improve on your health and improve on you? Is there anybody out there besides
Yeah, we've got Leanne,
oh yeah,
Mark,
okay.
Elsa.
All right, does anybody want to take a shot at this? What kinds of activities or as far as goals go, activity level, exercise, really? Anybody have any goals for that in the future, this new year, this coming year? Anything you want to share? See, I just make some questions. What are the benefits to walking or movement exercises or even resistance? Okay, so our little people down here in the circles, with increased activity, you get a 50% reduction in chronic illness. And that could be a reduction in flare-ups of something you're already dealing with, or prevention. It could have a preventative effect as well of something, I want to say, blood clots. Inactivity contributes to blood clots. Activity helps prevent blood clots. So, and also it's been associated with a decreased risk of dementia, especially Alzheimer's, which is the worst kind of dementia. So there's a risk reduction there. And I'd say that's I think that's a good thing to gamble on. Plus, if, like you do here, you're engaged in exercise with other people. So a reduction in depression, loneliness, anxiety, and I want to say an increase or elevation in your mood. Don't think anybody would disagree with that, but does anybody have anything to add to that?
Learning something new.
Ooh, Kevin says learning something new, something, in other words, something that you're not doing already.
Writing poetry, learning watercolor.
Right.
This knitting, sewing.
Exactly. All of these kinds of activities too. In fact, some of those come up in a couple slides down because these are activities that might enhance your mindfulness, creativity, brain. I want to say there's this part of the brain right over here
building
that I don't
synapses.
use. Yeah. Yes. And that's hard. Kevin says community. And I said, yeah, that's hard to do if you are not familiar with the people you're communing with. You have to take a risk, right?
I mean, there's a whole community of people that collect the Avon bottles. So, I mean, you can get down to that narrow and specific, particular type of hobby, anything that you choose, you will find a community.
So Kevin is mentioning hobbies, specific hobbies, narrowing it down to maybe one item. If you are interested in something like that, if you type that in, you're likely to find it if you go searching for it. Okay. Next, okay, sleep. I don't think anybody here would disagree that maybe there's some way that they can improve on their sleep. And temperature has a lot to do with that. I want to say, interestingly enough, we do better with a slightly lower temperature, at least as low as 66, 65 degrees. Whereas if we get warmer and warmer, it tends to make your sleep, it tends to disrupt your sleep, or it interrupts the quality of your sleep. And it appears that we do better when it's a bit cooler. So when the thermostat's turned down rather than way up. Okay, anything to add to that? Anybody? So, I mean, this is sleep quality. You can all turn the thermostat down. You'll save money as well as improve your sleep. Anything to add? Anything out there in Zoom land regarding sleep and rest, ambient temperature? Nope.
Is there a benefit when it's colder? Because my kid was in a rehab hospital. It's the place, the temperature seems to be on the colder side, and what I was told by his sister was bacteria doesn't have a chance to grow in such colder temperature than when it's warmer temperature. I don't know if that was true.
Well, that may be. And so Paul is asking about temperature again, and care of the individual, or because his was it your cousin? Oh, okay. This is okay. So Paul is talking about the hospital rehab, which is not an acute setting, but maybe subacute. And so tended to be cooler. I'd say, the trouble with cooler temperature that I can see might be if an individual has problems with circulation. And if you added, a reduction in temperature, it might be a little uncomfortable. I thought, well, what's a way to deal with that? You could go to bed with socks on your feet.
Right, like that.
Yeah. If your head is, well, I want to say if that's where you feel coldest during the night, you can add something like that. Absolutely. So Kevin is mentioning that he adds a cap, to keep heat in, because guess what? We lose a lot of heat through our skull through. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. So Kevin has mentioned he doesn't have as much hair. And you know what? Come to think of it, after looking in the mirror, I don't have as much hair because I can see a lot of light coloring, which means that's the surface of my skull. Which means I don't have as much hair anymore. So we do lose a lot of heat that way. So just cover certain areas of the body that are maybe more susceptible to, like, this is cold, I'm freezing. Well, you you have to basically tailor that to your comfort level, but studies have shown as we age, we do a little bit better with cooler temperatures at night. I would just say maybe it comes down to the individual and leave it at that, unless anybody else has something else they want to add to that.
Yeah.
Also, low level music, sometimes like Alexa will
White-
put it on
white
the lowest volume. And it's just in the background, it's like white noise.
Yes, I completely agree. Oh, God, I forgot your name. Ron, you know, okay. Oh, uh, so Ron mentions, background noise. Doesn't have to be loud, just white noise. Which has an effect that it will calm you, help induce sleep sooner. Maybe even help you stay sleepy or in sleep longer. So it contributes to quality of sleep. And I think that's a good point. Yes.
So just that droning and chanting. It's good for, it has a little bit of music in the background. And the good thing about it is we can travel. You still have your phone, you can still play on it, so.
Absolutely.
Especially in.
I agree. So Kevin mentions there are some, like YouTube, there are some I want to say channels on YouTube that have chanting. And I remember when I was working night shift and I had to sleep during the day that I would put Gregorian chants on. Usually, if turned down low enough, that would help, you know, send me into the void of white noise and sleep. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, Kevin mentions that, well, some of these channels or, yeah, channels literally are nothing but, you know, crackling fires, a brook, like, waterfalls, whatnot, nature, birds chirping, that kind of thing. That's all day, all night, or, you know, as long as you want it on. Okay. All right, hydration. Yes. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Hydration has tons of benefits. Um, it is said to be the most perfect hydration beverage, and I agree. You know, unless you need something with added electrolytes or sugar, because you could use the sugar too in some cases. Depends on what you're doing though. You know, if you have access to good filtered water, that's one thing, but you know, the cost of bottled water, for instance, which I don't know, depending on the brand and what they say on it, purified water, you know, this came from, you know, this waterfall up here in the mountains or whatever. But you know, there's all kinds of disadvantages to toting around bottled water all day long. But there's some advantages too. It's like fortunately, but unfortunately. So there's kind of like a balance there as I see aspects of, you know, water that you're taking around, unless it's something that you have that doesn't have anything that'll bleed into the water. Because all the biggest thing these days is microplastics. It's like, well, I guess we're all eating, drinking, and breathing microplastics. There, I just took a big deep breath of microplastics. But if I'd say the most important thing is stay hydrated with a beverage that's going to do that. Coffee is going to take coffee and tea. Well, there is caffeine in tea unless it's decaffeinated. Soda and some energy drinks. Wow. We're, we're, we were talking about body armor. I recall a professor trying to get me to to buy that stuff too. He says, "Oh, it changed my life." I thought, "You sound like an infomercial." And the stuff was chock full of caffeine and sugar and God knows what else. On the side of the bottle, it has, you know, a very long and drawn out, I want to say label on it or what's in it. And then it speaks very loudly about what's not in it. But not much good. So benefits, your muscles can use it, your blood can use it, skin can use it. It's a good clearer of substances through your kidneys. Okay. It is, I mean, without fluid, our joints would not move very well. So staying hydrated is a good idea. It gives our brain a boost instead of having a headache and other troubles due to dehydration. It helps curb calorie intake. I mean, if you're drinking lots of water, that means you probably have less room for other things, right? It is a blood normalizer. And so, yeah, especially when we're in the hospital, we're constantly thinking about hydration and IVs and what are you taking in? You should be drinking more. It does help with fatigue and help boost us out of, fatigue, or at least increases the chance of a timely recovery from anything from exercise to stress. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Like the goods and the bads and the uglies? Carrot juice? Ron says carrot juice gives him a bit of a boost. And I take it doesn't have a lot of negatives about it. Carrot juice. Should look into that too. Very good. All right, reading, engaging the brain. This goes back to something I think a couple of you have mentioned. I mean, there's more than one way to engage the brain with reading or different puzzle exercises, etc. And what's the source? Is it a hard copy like a book? Is it a magazine, a periodical? Is it a newspaper? Is it something online? Is it some other kind of media? It's been shown that the more you're reading and engaging your brain this way, better retention. I mean, needless to say, reading does reinforce as well as boost vocabulary and knowledge, even if it's fiction. It's said that fiction has a way of increasing one's empathy, and maybe because you're reading about characters, and some are sympathetic versus some not being so sympathetic. And do you read to others? I remember when my kids were small, my wife and I took turns reading to the kids, stuff, whatever, Harry Potter until they fell asleep, or some other children's book. So it's engaging. Now, online books, things that you can maybe get. I mean, there's the cost and the storage within your computer. I don't know how much memory it takes up, or audiobooks for that matter. I remember one doctor or psychiatrist I used to work with out at Sutter. He would get his books, his book reading and or his knowledge of the books by putting in a audio tape that had the book on it on his way into work, because it took him an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to get there, and he wanted to use that time to get through a book. So, I mean, there's several ways you can do that. That's another way of exposing yourself to the writing and the reading, maybe knowledge. I think this doctor spent more of his time listening to fiction on his stereo in his car. So anything else to add? Anything else to add to that? Any like word puzzles, number puzzles, any other source? Any other kind of reading? Or engaging the brain? I mean, we do puzzles here, for instance. You're really engaging the brain with that in a different way than, reading somebody else's writing or your own writing, if you can read it. I go back and I look at some papers I wrote in cursive. I can't read some of the writing. It's like, And then I got to be a nurse and I realized reading doctors' handwriting is even worse. Thank God they went to an electronic form. So you would get the doctor, the timestamp, everything. A lot of times so anyway, that's just my little story on the side about reading and writing. All right, adding
Modest
more
has-
beans. Oh, what's up, Modest? Yes. Yes. Yes.
Like this.
Yes. Chess. Yes. That's games like that. Absolutely. Modest says games like chess, for instance. I mean, there are other games too that you can play on a board. There's checkers. I remember as a kid, we played games like Battleship, Stratego,
Risk.
Risk, card games. Boy, did we play card games. But yes, games. You're engaging your brain. You're deciding what you're going to do next. Sometimes you're deciding that 1 or 2 moves ahead of time. What if they do this? Should I do that? Or I'm prepared to do this if they do that. It's anticipating. So your brain is thinking in a critical way. Critical thinking. Absolutely. Good point. Good point. Anybody else out there in Zoom land want to contribute something on this? You got something? Okay, we'll move. All right, add more beans to a meat dish. Okay, what does that mean? Well, I guess we're talking about things like protein, good sources of protein without so much animal fat, perhaps. I mean, you don't have to go cold turkey on meat, especially things like we're talking about beef, anything like fatty meats, pork. I mean, you could go portions, kind of like quitting other habits. Do it slowly. Increase portions of other sources. Could be soy, for instance, and maybe less animal sources. You're going for plant sources instead of animal sources. So yeah, this looks like an Impossible Burger. Anybody recognize that? Impossible Burgers. Anybody ever had those? They're great. Yeah, I just got a thumbs up. Oh, I forgot your name again. Brent. Yeah, so Brent mentions a thumbs up, or he put a thumbs up to, well, these are like garden burgers. They're Impossible Burgers. They're plant source. Okay, less fat.
And beans are a great source of fiber.
Agree. Yes, indeed they are. Great source of. Yes, they are. They're great at creating a lot of things. We had an old little jingle about beans and the magical fruit. So I won't go into that. But all right, to meat or not to meat. Okay, to meat means you're going to get, well, these are really good sources of protein, but guess what? You get other sources of fat and oils that aren't so good for you. What is the cost? Is it cheaper? Well, the argument can be made, maybe beef is cheaper than some of these plant sources or vice versa. Not everything plant source is going to be cheap when it comes to substituting, that's for sure. So you got to look around. What I think is nice is that you can cut the sodium level of some of the beans you're eating just simply by washing them, in a colander, something like a sieve, to wash away most of the sodium, maybe not all, but most of it. Nuts are a really great source. I love nuts. I'm a little nuts myself. I'm nuts. Yeah, well, Sorry, okay, I laugh at my own jokes. That probably makes me a oneer, but, um. But there are other sources, seeds, soy, cost, okay, all right. 30 is much, I mean, it may cost you a little more, up to 38%, depending on the source. However, there's some pluses to that increased cost that you would accrue were you eating strictly animal sources. So you got to weigh that. But I would say add more beans to the meat, to meat or not to meat. I made that up. It's not very good. It's not very good. But I thought, well, to be or not to be, to meet or not to meet, that is the question. Okay, free or low cost workout options. I mean, does it cost you anything to come here? It might. Gasoline in the car, time to get here, depending on how you get here. Parking, oof. Yeah, that's true too. Can you drive to get here in the first place? So in person, there's also the online option. Sources I looked at online, they said, oh yeah, you can do this online. I thought, yeah, what's the catch? Online sources, unless it's something like this, are not always strictly free. It's like, you want my exercise workout? Hey, this is cheap. You're not going to find this anywhere else, and then you get the sales pitch. So that's why this option is a great option. I think it's low cost. But it might, versus, I want to say, doing it by Zoom, which means you've got to be able to sacrifice space in order to create a place where you can do the movements and the workout. And I think the Zoom is free here for everyone. It's not something you pay for. So that's a huge discount, I would say. If you were to try to get movements like Dave's, for instance, he's got a copy of Tai Chi back there. However, you do have to pay for it, or, if you paid to get it online, you might have to pay a fee to get it onto your computer. So there are low cost, no cost, free versus, okay, I like the structure of a gym, provided it's the right gym, provided, I can come and go as I please. So, that's an option too. There are some low cost gyms out there. All right, anything to add? Any comments? Oh, I got a thumbs up. I don't know what that's to, but.
Paul can hear okay.
Oh, Paul can hear okay, very good. Anyway, okay. Best bets in the center of the grocery aisle. Now, I had to think about this. I thought, where did that come from? Okay. Well, at least from one study there, they found that the cost for frozen versions of something like vegetables or possibly fruit was a better value than, say, something that they say is fresh. And then I read that, the ones that are putting out so-called fresh, it's really, they thought it out and put it out. So it's from a frozen source, unless it's like directly from the farm locally. Then it's kind of like, well, it's kind of hard to put that from farm to, food outlet. I had a farmer's market, for instance. I mean, certainly you could wash it and put it on ice. Absolutely. And that's where, using it over and over again until it's gone is, packing it up, eating it another day, and so forth. But the frozen aisles, I had trouble wrapping my mind around, were a better value for certain items, including meat sources. I thought, ooh, really? Rather than going and looking at that pound or two of hamburger or chicken legs, turkey legs, chicken legs, chicken legs. and other sources of meat, pork, etc. I thought, you know, next time I go into the grocery store, I'm going to go look that one up myself and see what the cost of frozen is versus fresh by the pound. So if there's any truth to this, we'll see. I'll report back. I just saw I'd throw that in there because they put this into this like as a New Year's. It's not a goal, but you know, when you go to the store, you're looking for the best value. Maybe before that wasn't a big detail for you or something you thought too much about. Well, maybe it will be this year. Getting the best value for your dollar, which we all try to do, right? Or at least if you don't think too much about it, perhaps you will now. Okay, any other contributions? Still waiting for Zoom. By the way, can you see my name tag? We're wearing tags now. Hopefully you can see this. Hopefully you can spot my name in here like a Where's Waldo, because I have a lot of stickers on mine. What? Oh, they can hear me, but they can't see me. Ha, so you can't. Okay, forget I put that in there. Okay, so here's another thing. It's very hard at times to be outgoing and do things outside your comfort zone. Volunteering is a way of getting outside that comfort zone. Okay. You know, doing this has never been easy. It's not easy for kids. Well, it's not exactly easy for adults either. Interaction with new people or people maybe you haven't seen in ages and ages. I mean, maybe you're not one of those outgoing persons, so maybe you want to do this little by little. But engaging with other people, it does help to boost the mood. Feels like you've got a goal in mind when you're working with others. Okay, it's like a team effort too, not just by yourself. Of course, you can accomplish a lot on your own if you've got a focus or a goal in mind and you can do it on your own. But it's also good to be a part of contributing with other people. That has a positive mental health impact. It does. It truly does. It has benefits to you and to the people you're interacting with. Like having a team effort, all work together for a larger goal, maybe. Okay, anything to add? I mean, volunteering is one way of doing it. Of course, you know, group exercising, group Tai Chi, group, God, it could be anything. I mean, even if you're going to, you know, playing chess with a group of people and you're, you know, taking turns playing, etc. Or I remember years ago, when I perused comic book stores looking for older comics, I would see these kids playing Dungeons and Dragons, and there'd be a bunch of them on tables on the other side of all of this. I thought, what's going on over there? Hear all this chattering and whatnot. Well, they're all playing this game. What is this? I go over there and I say, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, et cetera, et cetera. They were concentrating on what they were doing, and they weren't real chatty with me, but I kind of watched them for a while. And they were chatty with each other. And I thought, well, they have each other's company, community, whatever that is. And I thought, well, you can do that with games too. All right. How about new activities? This kind of goes with volunteering in a way, trying something new. Kevin mentioned this before, trying something new. What interests you? Is there a way that you can get involved with other people like this, stretching? This reminds me of exercise classes that Linda holds in the back of the room here. You know, their group, everybody's working toward similar goal. Okay. It brings new people into your life, new activities. Absolutely. And you're engaging your body. Well, you're also engaging your brain. Okay. Maybe this will, most of the time, when you're exercising and you're accomplishing something that does something to boost your own, you know, your mood, your own self-image. So that's a good reason maybe to try something like this in the new year. Okay. So just throwing that out there, it kind of ties into the slide before, it really does. Volunteering, you know, it's like, well, let me get out here and do this with others too. It's a group activity. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm moving on without skipping anybody in the comment section. Doesn't look like there are too many comments. No, nothing to add. Okay, here we go. Entertainment and nature. Okay, I have undervalued this since I was a kid. I used to value it a lot when I was a kid before getting more responsibility. And I valued taking care of that more so than I valued being outside and with nature and you know, taking up time that way. Now I'm moving in the other direction where I'm trying to spend more time walking outdoors, bicycling outdoors, sitting somewhere in nature, just sitting and staring out in the nature and not thinking of anything. That's pretty low cost, especially if you're within walking distance. You're exposed to fresh air, although depending on where you are, as y'all know all about what's going on down south, and I won't go into that, but that certainly is affecting the air quality. It's easier to be out in nature and be mindful, I think, because you're not in front of a computer, a book, inside the house, staring at the television. You're not, you know, doing something indoors where it's maybe more difficult to be mindful. And this would include things like gardening, because you're outside. Even if you're in your own garden, you're still outside, right? Makes sense to me. Alternatives to being inside means you're going to be inside again if you go to a movie, and they're costly. Let's just say it. Going to a movie is costlier. I mean, it's more expensive, better word. And maybe a little bit too overstimulating. Wrong kinds of noises. Yeah, it tends to be loud. So if you're trying to find any evidence of, you know, a benefit from nature, you got to be outdoors and not indoors. You can't just put it on your computer screen and, you know, listen to the sound of birds and brooks and water. That's great at night, but not so good if you're trying to actually live it in some way. It's a thought. And plus, this also has a benefit psychologically as well as physically to you, especially if you're in an area where you know you're breathing in fresh air, your mind clears. Okay, you can be mindful. You're walking, so you're working muscles as well. Maybe you're hiking instead, so your muscles are getting more of a workout that way. Maybe you're with somebody else and you're able to, you know, talk about other things that in other areas you couldn't. Who knows? So it has benefits. Grow in a garden. Yes, yes. I've seen community gardens all over Sacramento, and they look wonderful. I peer into them. I used to see one or two when I go out walking from, well, of course I moved away from that area, but I would see individuals out in this large garden with, you know, and at all times of the year, you'd see different plants, vegetables, things like that growing, and different individuals coming into this community garden and pulling things up and or planting or, you know, fixing something that, you know, maybe blew over in the last storm, that kind of thing. It boosts one's mood. It does the same thing as being outdoors or even exercise. I think just about everything has the possibility of boosting your mood, including laughter. Um, but gardening, at least I could tell you, my wife would tell you that too. She's out in the garden a lot. It increases satisfaction as well, I think, in different ways, you know. And plus, she's to herself for most of that. And you can think about what you're doing, something different. Take your mind off other things, maybe. Well, what if you don't live in an area where dirt, gardening in your yard, etc., isn't possible? Well, okay, that's a limitation. Water resources, okay, well, that's a possible limitation too. You know, that would depend. That would depend. Space, maybe you do have a garden or a place you can garden, but it's not very big. Doesn't have to be. Plus, you can bring potted plants into your life without having to worry so much about, dirt. Do I have a place, a place, a spot of land in the front or the back that I can plant something? Maybe you can just bring it in and tend to it inside the house. So that would also have the effect of helping to boost your mood, I would think. I know there's plants inside my house. They attract little flying varmints every now and again, but for the most part, satisfying. Part of nature.
Movement, I guess you call it, where they want people to go out and take off their shoes and walk and call it earthing or something.
Yes, I mentioned that before. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
That's gardening.
Yes, because you have your hands in it. I mean, nowadays, I think a lot of people, when they have their hands in it, they might sometimes have gloves in it because they don't want to get it up into a cut or underneath their fingernails, etc. Maybe. A lot of us will wear gloves. I would tend to do that, but you're still into the dirt, the soil, the earth. So it makes sense. There's a lot of satisfaction from that. But yeah, the earthing movement. I don't mention it here because I'm not so sure what it's all about, even though I did a PowerPoint on it. There were some sources that sounded more like infomercials because they wanted to sell their product that is like earthing, where you go outside and, like you were walking out on the side of the building here and stepping on grass. That's a little different than bringing something into the room. And this is like grounding or earthing or whatever, stepping on it, laying down on it. I thought they're trying to sell a product. But we're talking about generally or genuinely being outdoors. There is something about interaction with nature. So I'll give it that. I'll give it that. Practicing gratitude. Yeah. This you can do in, I think, every day when you wake up, or when you go to bed, or just at any time during the day. It has a way of improving your mindset, helping you go to bed maybe with a mind more at ease. And my older brother used to, when I bring things up, he said, your biggest problem is your mind is on the past or the future. Your mind is not on what's going on. I said, yeah, you're right. I tend to dwell on I tend to dwell a lot on the past. And so practicing gratitude at times gets me out of that pattern of dwelling on, mistakes of the past, etc., that kind of thing. There are studies out there that show that it does improve depression, does decrease the number of episodes of panic and anxiety. has a positive net effect on you in the end. Okay. Where if you're being thankful and spending time, less time on dwelling on the worst possible things and more on the positive things, even out of negative. And I tell my students that, look, you're going to make errors. It's what you do with that. It's what you do. What did you learn from it? That you can pull something positive from it. And it's positive if you apply it, whatever you learned. And so that's something I try to do, turn this into a positive. Find something. What did you learn from this? Instead of dwelling on it, don't dwell on it. You know, so I mean, that might be also a better way of clearing your mind at night of things that continually sift round and round and round. You want it to just stop so you can quiet your head and go to sleep. So that in that sense too, I think the white noise and the chants help me to do that. I still use them from time to time. I do. Guided imagery is another one. I still have a couple of those that my brother gave me. They work. They work when I use them. So yes, it does take time to practice. This is not something you can go snap your fingers and, oh yes, I'm practicing gratitude now from now on. Well, you might have some slip ups and failures at first, and that's all right. Just take steps, move in the right direction, go at your own pace, because it isn't a race. Yeah, I like this. What consumes your mind controls your life. So practice gratitude. Practice gratitude. And to end this, 5 ways to practice gratitude. Okay, keep a journal. My older brother keeps a journal on stuff. It's like, oh, no wonder he's able to deal with all the stressors so well. Keeps a journal on it. So change, I have to I get to. Boy, that's tough to do. That is hard to do. It's kind of like putting something on the list and it's like, I'm going to ignore that. It's on my list. I'll do it when I get around to it. I need to have a mindset that's instead of have to, hey, I get to do this. I need to do that. Hug someone important to you. Absolutely. Contact, physical contact with someone else. Family, friends, that kind of thing. Write a thank you note to yourself. Yes. I went and did a little bit of searching on that, and that's kind of like journaling in a way, because you can put a note to yourself or a letter to yourself in a journal format for the day, whatever that is. Paying it forward. So taking that whatever positive and paying it forward to somebody else, whatever that looks like. I used to, not anymore, but I used to pay if I go to a toll bridge when it was a little more manageable, the cost, and I used to pay for mine and the person behind me. You know, I used to do that. Don't do it anymore. Toll bridges are expensive. Yeah, it's not cheap. It's like, well, well, so, and it doesn't have to be something money wise, just pay it forward, do an assist, offer to help. When I was at the gym, these 2 young ladies were, well, they had something that spilled onto the floor. Luckily it was a big rubber padding, and it looked like some sort of I don't know, a coffee or some sort of coffee drink, because it didn't look like water. So I offered to go get a bunch of towels, which I did, and I offered to help clean. I said, well, okay, you're being nice, you're offering to help, you're paying this kind of thing forward. And that's not always natural for people. You have to work at it, as a way of exercising gratitude. So that's what I wanted to end this with. All right. So I am finished. Even though you didn't get to see my face, thank God. I didn't comb my hair today. What hair I have left. Okay, any questions in Zoom land? Or are you zooming out? Ooh, zooming out? Any questions? Contributions, thoughts, ideas? Anything that doesn't even have to be on topic? I guess not.